good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on what time zone you're in or what time you're watching this video. We're back with some more Ren. I know, quite the surprise, but honestly, it's been fantastic, and I've been told a lot of good things about Heretic. So I'm very, very excited. Many of you have recommended this and have said that there's a lot to dive into, and well, that's what we're here to do, right? That's what this whole thing's about. Let's explore the meaning. Let's figure out some nuances. Let's connect with each other. At the end of the day, let's have a good time, right? So without further ado, on with the show.
It's such a perfect day to be washed away. I went and sat by the shore and I counted the waves. I counted 108 reasons I want to escape, but then the reasons they crash upon the shore and they break.
So many things just right out the gate. One, I love this art style. It reminds me a lot of Diazepam, and I loved the art style back in Diazepam. Two, visually, like we're hearing we're talking about our problems, the things that hurt us, or the things that we think about, the mental things that we're going through, or the physical things that we're going through, all of it kind of encompassing as waves, right? We're talking about them as waves of problem. And that's such a very interesting choice because it is like they come in waves, right? They come crashing down like waves. But on top of that, as he sat by the shore, and if you think of the mind, it almost is like an island at times, especially in times where you're feeling alone and feeling isolated. And so it's quite literally like waves crashing on the beach, right? And so what's happening is we're watching the waves come in, and what's interesting about water is it can cause erosion over time, right? Water can kind of carve out land with heated action. It's basically how the Grand Canyon got made. And so when we think about the metaphor there, it's like over time, these problems can start to chip away at you, right? Quite literally and metaphorically. But on top of that, he's talking about how you start counting them, right? Because you take time to actually sit and then think about all of the problems at once. It starts to feel like a lot. And one of the things he said, it's such a perfect day to be washed away. And it almost sounds like it's such a perfect day to just let the problems fade into us. And then those reasons, they crash on the shore, and they break, right? But they're breaking like the waves are breaking. So in a way, it's almost like we're able to kind of tolerate it more because the waves hit and then they crash, but then they do break and then go back out to sea because we're allowed some semblance of peace if we kind of enter our mind and just think for a moment about all the things that we're going through. So just out the gate, holy smokes, like just so many things. I'm not sure what 108 means. Someone wants to let me know kind of in the chat. That would be great. But just so much vivid imagery. And then in terms of the actual visual, we see Ren, who is essentially surrounded by water. And we're not seeing the waves, but this is almost like the idea that the waves are now just encompassing him. The water, the problems, the issues that he's facing are all encompassing him. And that's what we see here. It's drowning in that either doubt or just like pain or just all the things that can kind of flood one's mind. And that's what we're seeing. But then beyond that, it's interesting that the whole thing is kind of black and white, except for, I want to say, the sun. I don't know if there's super meaning to that yet, but I wonder if that has to be like that. Even in the darkness, there is light, right? And then that kind of goes back to high Ren. So good. Oh my God, 16 seconds in. Why am I even surprised with this anymore? It might not even be the sun in retrospect. It might be the moon, right? And the moon actually is what causes the waves because of the gravity of the moon. So I wonder if maybe I was thinking of it as a good thing, could be a bad thing. Who knows?
To escape, but then the reasons they crash upon the shore and they break. I don't think I've got the stamina for this anymore. I'm not sure, that's why I'm here by the shore, but I'm sure that I'm so tired of searching for messiahs, asking why must I battle this Goliath? I'm a fool.
Something I didn't even think about is the audio recording. It sounds like someone kind of calling it in, you know what I mean, calling through the phone. So it's almost like you're distant from yourself. It's a communication coming from further away, but saying I don't know that I have the stamina for this anymore, because like after a while you've just been battling this waves for so long, trying to swim against them sometimes, and it just feels like it's so hard to get past them. And then eventually you end up drowning in them. And maybe that's why the imagery was there, to show kind of Ren essentially drowning in the waves, except the waves now are stagnant. Really, really interesting. But he just said something there. I have the lyrics up here, so I'm not sure. That's why I'm here by the shore, but I'm sure that I'm so tired. That is amazing. Um, like ultimately, he's saying, I honestly don't know what's going on. I don't know why it's getting so bad, but I'm still here, and my mind is still present, and I'm thinking about all of this. Just so tired. It's just all so heavy, and that it starts to hurt after a while because it's like fatigue, right? You've developed fatigue in an it's like he was trying to swim across, trying to break through the waves, but then he got fatigued and ended up starting to just fall into the water. And that's what the first visual was. Oh, that's so cool. But he says he's tired of searching for messiahs, searching for other people who will kind of tell him how to live his life, or teach him how to feel better, because that's all it seems to be. Sometimes we look to others to kind of find hope or inspiration, and sometimes it's impossible because some of the things you're dealing with, just honestly, maybe no one's ever dealt with them, right? But still, you ask why is this happening? Someone give me an answer. Why is this happening to me? And why do I have to battle this Goliath, like David and Goliath? Where it's like the story ultimately goes that David is kind of a meek looking individual compared to this giant monstrosity of an individual who he has to battle in order to save everybody, essentially, to save others. And it's that kind of feeling where it feels like you're against something so much bigger than yourself, but you have to figure out a way to deal with it and break it before it breaks you. My God. And I'm loving this transformation I just saw. This is reminding me a lot of like Dragon Ball Z, this like explosion outward. So I'm curious if that's an inspiration here.
Messiah's asking why must I?
Oh, and then oh man, I didn't even think about that. But it's all these things are the images of like possible problems that he's going through. Oh man.
To this Goliath, I'm a force of nature. Don't you know I'm aware of it? But I'm so very sick of feeling so very sick. I'm tortured by the gods. I guess that I'm a heretic. Life keeps on fucking me. I wish that life was celibate.
I wish that life was celibate. That's wow, what a bar. Something that's super cool. They're just going back for a minute in the video. I don't know how many of you are fans of Dragon Ball Z, but this is absolutely a call to Dragon Ball Z. You can see his hair color changes in Dragon Ball Z. Essentially, what happens is there are individuals who are called Saiyans, and when they power up, their hair color changes from whatever the normal hair color is to usually golden or almost white, which is kind of being exemplified here. But the sun is golden, so I wonder if that's what it is. It's like his inner power, because that's what happens is they kind of power up, and their internal power is released and excels. Maybe that's why the sun is golden. Oh man, that's really cool. But one thing that he said there was, I'm a force of nature. Don't you know I'm aware of it, right? Because it's like sometimes even we forget, right? So this is almost like talking to yourself, but also talking to other people, saying, even though things are bad, I know I'm powerful. And I really love the idea of kind of pairing a childhood loving show of mine, like anime. And I'm sure everyone has an experience, or a lot of people have an experience with Dragon Ball Z where it was like one of their first animes they've ever watched, right? And in that, you felt like you could be that person, like you could power up, you could become a Saiyan if you tried hard enough. And it makes you feel like a force of nature, right? But it's almost like life's problems kind of begin to shadow that away from yourself. But you have to remember that you are powerful in your own way, right? Not everyone's power is obviously external or very overt, but everyone has a semblance of power as long as they reach inward and find it. The power to kind of overcome your demons, overcome your problems. And it's hard, but that's what you have to do. And that's why we're all forces of nature at the end. But wow, what a cool way to show that, and then juxtapose it kind of with our childhood. Because it's like as we grow up, we almost forget about that inner power that we feel like we have because of all the problems that we're surrounded with. And in terms of for Ren, it's because he's been sick. He's been let down a little bit by the industry, like that kind of stuff. And he even says he's so sick of feeling very sick because he's just tired of it. He's tired of feeling like he's fighting everything in the world, including his own body, his own self. My God, that is so good. And then he says, I'm tortured by the gods. I guess I'm a heretic. And whether that's like the gods, like in terms of like the religious meaning, or gods in terms of like gods of our world, quote unquote, in the sense of like government, in the sense of like people in power, or people who have the ability to kind of decide what happens in our life or change it in some way, big way, and you're kind of feeling like you're battling against them because he's going against all of that, right? He doesn't want to support these kind of traditional styles of thinking that have already existed, and he wants to battle against it, and so he feels like a heretic. But also he feels like, is that why I'm suffering so much? And that's that inner voice in our head saying maybe you shouldn't have done that, right, to some extent. Oh man. And then saying life keeps effing me. I wish that life was celibate. What a line. I don't think I need to explain that much, but like celibate essentially means you abstain from having sex, and fucking someone is the colloquial way of saying that you're having sex. And so he wishes that life would just cut him some slack, but in such an expertly written way. My God. I'll let it play out just to show that again, the Super Saiyan thing. I love that.
I'm a force of nature, don't you know? I'm aware of it, but I'm so very sick.
Oh, and then things slow down, but we still have the hair, and also there's a fence there, so it's almost like he's on the outside looking in again because he's a heretic, right? He's considered someone who's not part of the main line of thinking. My God, Ren. And also this style now is very much more anime than I think Diazepam was, and I love anime, so I love that. You might be able to tell I love anime from the everything behind me, but yeah.
I guess that I'm a heretic. Life keeps on fucking me. I wish that life was celibate. My problems keep on peaking like the Everest. The elephant in the room is that my room is in the elephant.
Wow. The elephant in the room is that the room is in the elephant. So it's elephant in the room is kind of like the way of saying like something that sticks out or doesn't belong, right? Both are kind of like a meaning for it. And then he ultimately says that the elephant in the room is that my room is in the elephant because I live in that elephant. I am that elephant, essentially. I am the thing that feels like doesn't belong. And this is why he constantly feels that battle, right? Where he constantly feels like he's slugging against demons, against these Goliaths, right? And that's why the room is in the elephant, because he constantly feels like he's on the outside. He constantly feels like he doesn't belong or doesn't fit in with those ways of thinking, with the traditional capitalism, kind of like money greedy, that kind of way of thinking, lack of affection, lack of connection, lack of love. He doesn't agree with any of that. And yet that seems to be kind of what feels like is on the up and up a lot of the time. And so he is not just like seeing an elephant in the room. He is in the elephant. He is the elephant in the room. How do you even, that's such a beautiful line. How do you even think of that? And then something he says there, my problems keep peaking. And it's like, you see that the image of this flag on top of a peak that you try to climb to, but I don't even know if there was a way to really, there's a small path that you have to try to get to. And that's what your mind is constantly thinking about, is this future, this goal that you have set in mind. And that's the peak that you feel, but you're finding so much trouble getting there. And then the peak is kind of like the problems, right? And he says my problems keep on peaking because the peak is the problem. When you set that goal, sometimes those goals are unhealthy, and yet you're still trying to strive for them because you don't really necessarily see it that way, or your mind has been slightly warped by what exists already out there. He's so good. He's so good.
Elephant becoming evident that we make fear president. When fear trumps love, that's when the soul becomes irrelevant.
Oh, and the soul backs away. Jesus, holy smokes. Okay, so it says when fear trumps love, that's when that we make fear president when fear trumps love, right? And so ultimately saying like, if we let our fear of being that person that goes against the grain, who believes in love, believes in happiness, believes in connection, if we let the fear of that take over, and it goes beyond love, it goes and kind of eclipses our love, well then we lose, right? That's ultimately when the soul becomes irrelevant, because we've disconnected from our soul. Our soul is what connects us all. We feel that connection on an inner, deeper level. And if we feel like we've let fear take over, and we've let fear take over beyond love, well then our soul is no longer connected to us. It's no longer connected to each other. So it becomes irrelevant. And his soul here splits off, right? part of him is now splitting off, moving away, falling into the background, quite literally. And just amazing. Just amazing.
Irrelevant.
Ooh. That sound and the image. So the image, there's something in the background kind of lurking, and I wonder if that's like our problems or that are haunting us. But just the way that that hook is going, I don't know, a hook chorus, I don't know what I'd call it, like that, ah, is like, it almost sounds like a lullaby, right? You can even hear that ding, 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 ding. It sounds like a lullaby because it's like you're so tired, you just want to go to sleep, but it's a lullaby. But it also almost sounds like a, I don't know how to say it, but like a sigh, right? Like there's like an element of disappointment in what I'm hearing there. And it almost sounds like you're so tired and you're just so done with things being the way that they are that you just want to move past everything, and you're trying to walk through this forest where there's problems lurking all around you from the imagery. Just beautiful. I want to go back and listen to that again.
When my troubles keep on
No.
When my troubles keep on mounting, I make molehills out of mountains. Roundabouts of doubt is sounding, drown my youth inside the fountain.
Oh my god. Okay, I do have the lyrics here, thankfully, which is going to really help me here because I missed a little bit of that, I think. But he says, when my troubles keep on mounting, I make molehills out of mountains. So when the problems keep coming up, you try to just like push them away. You try to imagine that they're not there. And so you make a molehill out of a mountain, when the colloquial kind of term is making a mountain out of a molehill. But instead he flips it and he says making a molehill out of a mountain. So you have so many problems, and they can be so large, but in order to kind of get past it, you try to minimize it and you try to make them smaller than they actually appear. And then roundabouts of doubt are sounding, roundabouts like going around and around, but it's doubt, and it's just in your head. It's the voice of doubt going around and around. And he says, drown my youth inside the fountain. Essentially, it's when that fear took over, when sickness takes over, when problems take over, and they kind of drive your life, you feel like you let some of that slip away, let some of that just disappear. And so when you're supposed to be experiencing your youth, it feels like you're drowning, but also the fountain of youth, which is like immortality, right? And so when you should be kind of feeling like you're this being that's immortal, you're actually feeling like you're drowning inside the pool, the fountain that's supposed to be granting you immortality. And that's such a beautiful, just the lyricism, the level of lyricism, guys. We're a minute and 23 seconds in. This must already be 20 minutes. I don't know. But honestly, like this has been great.
Of mountains, roundabouts of doubt is sounding, drown my youth inside
again, the fence, because now again, he still feels like he's on the outside.
Mountain. I'm a fucking atom bomb, bitch, pouring salt into the wound. Watch me rip apart the stitch. I'm that kid.
Oh my god. There's that like inner energy where it's like, I'm not that person. I'm not someone weak. I'm not someone who's gonna succumb to these pains and problems. No, I'm gonna be bigger than this. And then pouring salt into the wound, it's like thinking about the problems, pouring salt into it. But also, he mentions like ripping apart a stitch. So all of this kind of goes back to like, when you have these issues, you kind of have to pull off the Band-Aid, deal with it immediately. So that's what he's doing. But on top of that, when you really think about it, pouring salt in the wound, it almost caters back to what he's doing with his music, through his music. All these issues that exist in society, he's treating them the same way that he treats the issues inside him, where he deals with them full-fledged, full force, because he's like you said earlier, a force to be reckoned with. And so what he's doing now is also helping society by ripping apart or just ripping the bandage, pouring salt in the wound to make these problems evident and bring them to light, and then help share collectiveness, love, empathy, all of that through his music. Oh my god. Okay. Oh man, and the imagery was amazing.
It's pouring salt into the wound, watch me rip apart the stitch.
And then notice how the thing that he says, watch me rip apart the stitch, it's like light is touching his hand and expanding. And it's almost like, it's like that inner sense of enlightenment, right? Wow. And then cocking the gun, you can see Heretic on the gun because he's going against the traditional modern day gods, which is like not just religion, but also like all, like I mentioned earlier, government, people in power in general who care nothing for most of the people below them. And so he's loading a gun with bullets. And remember what he talked about on Illness Over Time. His words are his bullets, and that's what he's loading into the gun.
I'm that kid, the one that life subtracted, isolated, fractured, Shakespeare reenacted, adapted for music is too sick. I'm shining like Kubrick, my method is clockwork, a full metal dude with my eyes.
Oh, that sounded like that was gonna be freaking fire. He says, I'm that kid, the one that life subtracted, the one that it just discounted, it didn't even consider, and put away essentially. But also isolated, fractured. I would have assumed it was almost, you can almost say fractions, right? And then we're going into like mathematics as part of the music, but he's saying isolated, fractured, and we see him split because his mind is in two places. He knows that people expect this from him, but he doesn't believe in some of these things, and he feels this way. And so his mind is fractured, and we see him kind of split on screen, which is amazing. And he says Shakespeare reenacted because this is multiple levels to it too, because he's saying he's the most creative, he's one of the most creative individuals, like Shakespeare was with words and plays, right? And his poems. And that's what he's doing here. He's becoming Shakespeare, almost like reincarnated. But beyond that, it's like he's bringing to life tragedies that exist, right? Which is what Shakespearean literature is known for. It's known for tragedies. And so he's saying ultimately he's bringing these tragedies to light in order to help the world, right? And that's what he's doing here. And then he goes into all this, like basically call outs to Kubrick's movies, which is super cool. I haven't seen all of them, but The Shining. So like he's saying, I'm shining like Kubrick, who was the director, because when he released that, it did so amazingly well, and he became very well known for that. So he's kind of giving a nod to not only Shakespeare, but also Kubrick, but then also saying my method is like clockwork, because clockwork basically means it works like it's perfect. It works like clockwork, like it's perfect. And because his method is perfect, and we know that because look at what he's done so far, and all that without the help of a record label. It's all independent, right? But also Clockwork, like Clockwork Orange, which is one of the movies that I have not seen, and then a Full Metal Dude. And Full Metal Dude, if I'm not mistaken, refers to, and you actually see him with the helmet on. So let me just go back to that for a second. With bullets strapped to the back of his head. Normally, you don't put bullets there; you put them across the chest, right? Usually to reach out for. But they're bullets. Not only that, they look like sniper bullets. And so that's what he's saying is my methods are like clockwork. They're precise, right? My methods are precise. My words are precise. Everything I do is precise. And he's born to kill, but also there's the peace sign there. That tells you that he's basically there to kill off those that are against peace. Born to kill those who go against peace. And how do you kill those that go against peace? You kill them with love. And that's everything that Ren is about. And it's just so good. Just so good. God. Okay.
I've got a full metal dude with my eyes on the prize. Do you obey? Do you abide? What's the price of creativity? Is it losing your mind and seeing patterns in the places where the patterns are defined?
Ooh. Seeing patterns in the places where the patterns are hard to find. And remember when we talked about earlier, like sometimes you have to find light in the darkness, and it's really hard to find, but that's kind of what you do, right? But okay, let's go back to kind of the start of that, where he says, my eyes on the prize, do you obey, do you abide, right? It's talking about like, the prize ultimately for him used to be getting into the music industry, probably through like an actual label company. But then it's like, do you abide by that, or do you kind of do your own thing and go beyond that? And then what's the price of creativity? Is it losing your mind? Because ultimately, although the lyrics here, I think, say loosing, so I'm interested. Either way, loosing and losing, it means the same thing. Do you have to kind of let your mind go and wander and be free of these constraints in order to reach this point of creativity, right? Is that what has to happen? Does your mind have to appear broken and fractured in order for you to feel creative? Because you go against the grain of everything that's expected of you. You come off as a crazy person. Right? If you're being told to do things this way, and then you're going completely against that grain, and everyone's like, well, no one else has done it that way. What are you, crazy? And that's what he's saying here. Is that the price of creativity? Because if it is, he'll pay. Because he will not stifle his creativity. He wants his music and his love to be heard. And that's why he's taking it and running with it. Oh my God. And then he's seeing the patterns in the places where patterns are hard to find, looking for this creativity in places that you might not expect to find it. Some others have mentioned to me just how much he's in tune with like society in terms of like the way that he gives back to community, the way that he's kind of inspires others, and that's what he's doing, right? He's finding these places where it's dark and where it's hard to see that light, and he's showing it to us. Oh my god, this one's you guys, you recommended it, and honestly, like 10 out of 10. This is fantastic. Oh my god, and this sound too. Actually, there's one thing I do want to talk about. I'm sorry that I missed it. When he did this, let me pull it back a second. Eyes on the prize. That the sound of that is actually, there's two voices. There's the high pitched voice and the lower pitched voice, and you can kind of hear them going in together in this harmony almost, right? Except there's just one that's a pitch below, but it is harmonizing. And this is almost like, now that he's had this battle with himself to where he's wanting to go back to his creativity, that second voice, the soul that he lost, it's there with him again. And now they're singing in harmony. Oh my god, Ren, please, Ren, man, Jesus, I don't even know what to say.
Do you obey? Do you abide? What's the price of creativity? Is it losing your mind and seeing patterns in the places where the patterns are to find?
There it is. He feels all alone, right? And then there's this darkness kind of surrounding him, but you can see in the distance there's these lights, and maybe that's what he's trying hard to find, but he's not looking up to see them. Kind of what you see in the visual there, right? They're in front of him, but he's looking down. And if you're spending most of your life looking down, seeing only the darkness, you won't see the light. Not because it's not there, but mostly because it's just you're not looking for it. Because life is full of wonders and full of happiness and joy, not all the time, but sometimes it becomes hard to see when you're kind of embedded in this darkness, when it feels like it's swallowed you up, swallowed you whole, and you sit there, and he's in the position where he's like, his arms are wrapped around his legs. It's this position of almost like fear, but also struggle and suffering, and that's what we're watching. This is the part of him that saw that. And it was lost to the darkness. But again, just all of the stuff that he does is just so fantastic. Like, I don't know if he also chooses all of the visuals as well, but if he does, he can literally do anything. Like, I have not seen this man miss a single time. This is so impressive. There are very few artists that I'm kind of just enamored with, and he's definitely one of them. So good. That's interesting. Now that he's at that peak that we were looking at earlier, it's like that light is moving away. And also just the number of eyes behind him when he says all alone. I wonder if that's representative of his problems or representative of the parts inside him that are trying to look for answers, and maybe people there supporting him that he just can't see it. So it's just like eyes. I want to lean towards maybe it's the problems and the issues, but I'm not sure. The ambiance of the music, it almost sounds ethereal. It sounds angelic, the way he's singing it, and then his soul body. Is that the disconnect? Is that what he's saying? Or is it more like an out-of-body experience where you allow your mind to travel to these places and feel the energy there? And that's why it's almost like this ethereal sound where it's like his soul is rising to the creative spot in his mind. My God. Oh my God. Oh, okay. Was that like the apple of Eden, essentially, where you can either take the apple or not? And maybe it's like now that his soul has risen to this point of creativity, up to the light, that darkness inside him that was used to be in the forest following him, now it can't even follow him anymore. It's actually outside of the forest. And the light was actually following him. And beyond that, the darkness seemed to be reaching for the apple and it couldn't pull it off. Maybe that's representative of like now that he's kind of reached this point in his mind, the darkness doesn't have as much strength over him and he won't reach for he won't pull that apple down. Even though the darkness wants to, it doesn't have the strength to, because now it's put aside. It's the light inside of Ren's mind that's helping to combat that. And quite literally, we see it in right now on the screen where it's the sunlight shining, or now I think it's the sunlight, almost sure, but the sunlight shining from inside his mind, which is also representative of, or inside his head, which is also representative of his mind is now producing this light as well. Because, like we saw a second ago, his soul has risen to this point of creativity. It's traveling beyond what his body limits him to be. And so we're still kind of detaching the soul to some extent, but it's in a positive light now because it's almost like spirit walking. Jesus. Oh, okay. Maybe I had the darkness wrong. Maybe the darkness is just like maybe this goes back to kind of what he says in High Ren, where it's like the darkness inside us isn't necessarily a darkness that we want to fight against all the time. If you do, it ends up poorly, right? Maybe the darkness is something that we have to embrace and teach, or to some extent extend a hand to, in order to kind of quell it and still live in the light, right? And this goes back to kind of, oh my God, Ren. This goes back to the idea in High Ren where it's like you can't just fight the darkness. That's not something that's possible because there will always be darkness. You can't extinguish it. You actually have to learn how to live with it. And this almost makes me feel like he was Little Red Riding Hood, right? And this was the wolf in the forest, right? Almost like a callback to that story, except he's bringing apples to this individual because even the big bad wolf needs some kind of care, some kind of love. And that's what he's done. He's brought the apples for this individual who couldn't pull it down himself. And it's almost like a peace offering, which is what we saw on the helmet earlier. So it's him finding inner peace and then extending that out to us. And now we see the balance between the darkness and the sun, right? The light. And they're both inside his mind. Yeah. Oh, damn. I don't... guys, like... Red is a mastermind. Like, this is insanity. He's such a genius. I'm actually like bewildered. I'm so impressed and just in shock at just how many things this man is capable of. The music, visuals, lyrics, the sound, the ambiance, the storytelling, the way he can kind of take things that are from our past and then make them kind of part of the modern culture that we're seeing. And just the love, empathy, care, joy, everything that he stands for. It's brilliant. That's the only word for it. He's brilliant. And I loved this. This was amazing. In terms of like meaning and just the story behind it, this might be my top. I think High Ren and this kind of battle each other out in a way, and maybe we have to find peace between the two of them. But I think this speaks a lot about like ourselves, where if we're trying to go and battle the world, it's just not going to work out for us. To some extent, we can't battle the inner demons. It's just not going to work out for us, right? And then when you think about the world is full of these demons, and we have to kind of figure out a way to overcome them. Now, this is kind of contrary to one another, but it's the internal battle. It needs to be a battle that turns the monster into something that is more cooperative and something that we can work with. Because inner demons oftentimes are things that we truly want. It's like if you think of id, ego, superego, it's actually your id, which is primal. It's things that you desire at your core. And there's no way to live life without it. And so the best way to live life is with it, finding a way to kind of go hand in hand with each other. And that's what Ren is doing here. But then that goes beyond to saying, and the whole song, like he was mentioning, like, if you feel like the world is making poor decisions, if the things happening in the world are not something that you appreciate or something that you enjoy, then you don't have to be a part of those things. If you step beyond it, you can unleash your inner creativity. You can release your from the constraints of society. And that's what he's saying through his music. And that's what he's doing actively through his music. Yeah. All right. I want to, I almost, I don't think it's possible. I want to see Ren do a bad song because this is just ridiculous. It's not even that he does good songs. He does songs that pack so much emotion and meaning. And I love those things. I love looking for stories and with a lot of meaning. And this is just 10 out of 10, batting out of the park every time. So fantastic. My God. Okay. I'm gonna let's listen to it one more time because I want to see it all come together.
It's such a perfect day to be washed away. I went and sat by the shore and I counted the waves. I counted 100.
Oh, the lightning! I didn't notice that the first
reasons I
time.
want to escape, but then the reasons they crash upon the shore and they
Oh,
break.
it also looks like he's got wings in that sense right now that we're seeing. Sorry, I'll try not to pause.
I'm not sure, that's why I'm here by the shore.
And you see other things flying, so you're trying to fly.
For messiahs, asking why must I battle this Goliath? I'm a force of nature, don't you know I'm aware of it? But I'm so very sick of feeling so very sick. I'm tortured by the gods, I guess that I'm a heretic. Life keeps on fucking me, I wish that life was celibate. My problems keep on peaking like the Everest. The elephant in the room is that my room
Outlined by the sun.
Becoming evident that we make fear president. When fear trumps love, that's when the soul becomes irrelevant. When my troubles keep on mounting, I make molehills out of mountains. Roundabouts of doubt are sounding, drown my youth inside the fountain. I'm a fucking atom bomb, bitch, pouring salt into the wound. Watch me rip apart the stitch. I'm that kid, the one that life subtracted, isolated, fractured. Shakespeare reenacted, adapted for music is too sick. I'm shining like Kubrick. My method is clockwork, a full metal dude with my eyes on the prize. Do you obey? Do you abide? What's the price of creativity? Is it losing your mind and seeing patterns in the places where the patterns are to find? All alone.
just a couple of things I noticed on the rewatch. One, I mentioned it a little bit, but he looks like he's trying to spread his wings when he's drowning. And then in the background, there's all these other individual creatures flying, which kind of reminds you of like it feels like you're drowning while everyone else is in fight. That's kind of what's happening in your mind. But something else is he was wearing the helmet, and then there was kind of this cut to the darkness, and then cut back, right, like to the like born to kill idea, and that's the first mentality he had at first, that it needs to die. But then we go and see this creature where while he's talking about there being patterns where patterns are hard to find, he starts to notice this creature is just trying to survive, just like him, right? It's reaching for this apple and it just can't get it. And in his mind, he sees the pattern of, well, no, it's not actually evil. It's a part of me. And then that's why he ends up bringing it apples as the sign of like, I don't want you to die. I care about you like I care about everything else, right? And this also goes back to the Hiren video where he says, ultimately says, the darkness says, biting off the hand that feeds me, or something along those lines. Where he says, oh, don't, something about stopping the hand that feeds me. But that's what we're seeing there, right? The apple's not able to be taken by the dark side. And he's quite literally doing a call forward to that. Just brilliance in true form. And I love every second of it, every moment of it. I'm gonna replay this song like I did A-List of Our Time like 50 times, so I'm prepared for that. If you enjoyed what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe. Honestly, just even if you don't like or subscribe, let's have a conversation in the comment section. That's been the best part of this whole thing. I'm trying to catch up on the comments that are already there, but there are a lot of comments, so I apologize if it takes me a bit of time. I will try to get to everyone. I don't know if I will be able to for sure, but I'm going to try to, because that's the whole reason I got into doing these YouTube videos, was I wanted to talk to people around the world about positivity, about love, life, everything. Even the dark times, and that's what we've been doing in the conversation section or the comment section. And honestly, I love you guys. Always an amazing conversation, amazing experience to be a part of this community. So thank you so much for that. I hope that your week is better than your day, your month is better than your week, and your year is better than your month. And until next time, see you then.